All right, thank you for joining us, everybody. We've got Stroess here today. He is #1 go-to wardens when we want to know anything we need to know for law enforcement. And he's a huge help to our program and to our state, working with all the other law enforcement people. And he's going to talk specifically about how we in our program work with the wardens, which is, it's changed over the years. And so having his input, whether you've been here a long time or just for a little while, is going to be really helpful. So Bob, you can go ahead and take it away.
All right, well, I'll try to keep this to about 25 minutes to hold some questions or time for questions. So good morning, everybody. I'm Bob Stroess, the administrator of the Commercial Fish and Aquatic Species and Trade Enforcement Program for Wisconsin DNR's Warden Service. We're officially called the Division of Public Safety and Resource Protection. Before I go on, I just want to make sure that the audio is working right. Does everything sound all right? Or am I going in and out?
No, it sounds great.
Okay, thank you. Great, thanks, Jeannie, for inviting me today. Let me give you a quick rundown of where I've been and what I do so you know where my perspective is coming from. This is year 22 for me as a warden. I was the field warden in Manitowoc County for 14 years, and I've been in this position for the past 7 years. Most of my job is overseeing how law enforcement's involvement with all of the industries related to the commercial trade in aquatic species, primarily commercial fishing on the Great Lakes, and commercial fishing on the Mississippi River, inland commercial fishing, wholesale fish dealers, charter fishing, and businesses that deal with aquatic invasive species and trade. There's about 850 such businesses or license holders that operate in Wisconsin. About a quarter of my job is investigative work, and I also manage grant funding that we have that focuses on aquatic species and trade. I fill a few roles involving other agencies throughout the Great Lakes region and across the country, which helps me to be able to see how issues, potential bad guys, and trends are connected throughout a large geographic area. So my perspective used to be limited to what was happening in my county, back in Manitowoc County, never realizing how the things happening in my county, my backyard, were connected to so many things across the state and the Midwest. Now I deal with wardens from many states and provinces on a daily basis, sharing information about what's going on in the industries. What I can do, or what I do, I guess, can best be summarized by saying I keep an eye on all of the commercial aquatic industries from a bird's eye view and help the agency plan how to tackle current issues and projected issues within these industries. So today I'm going to talk to you about these topics. Basically, we'll talk about what DNR wardens do, how to contact wardens, and how you and your local wardens can work together to address various AIS issues. So some of you are new to your positions and have had very limited, if any, contact with DNR wardens. In fact, I find that many people don't really have any idea what DNR wardens do. Many people believe that all DNR employees are wardens. Well, that's not the case at all. In fact, only about 10% of DNR employees are wardens. There are many other positions within DNR, such as wildlife biologists, fish biologists, water management specialists, air pollution engineers, park rangers, customer service staff, invasive species specialists, foresters, and many other types of jobs. So DNR wardens are law enforcement officers first and foremost, just like local police, sheriff's deputies, or state troopers. Most of them have prior law enforcement experience before coming to DNR. There's about 240 wardens within DNR, and of those, about 180 are uniformed field wardens. Wardens, however, operate differently than traditional law enforcement, building significant relationships within the many communities that each warden serves, covering huge geographic areas, and trying to provide 24/7, 365 coverage. In other law enforcement agencies, it takes 5 staff to provide 24/7, 365 coverage to a particular beat or area or patrol zone. The wardens don't have that luxury and have to balance their work hours and efforts. So there's no second shift warden like there is in a police department. There's no third shift warden like in a sheriff's department. There's no weekend shift warden. There's no one to cover the warden's area during vacation. Wardens have to find a way to make it all work and be available as much as possible without losing their sanity, which normally happens in about year 6 on the job. So wardens are always asked, what's a typical day as a warden? Well, that depends. It depends on the season and the weather. It depends on what complaints come, depends on how many nights in a row they haven't had more than 2 hours of rest. Depends on what time the phone rang in the middle of the night last night. Depends on what search and rescue effort or body recovery efforts underway. Depends on if they caught the violator from yesterday. Depends on if there's an emergency radio call from the sheriff's department about a burglary in progress. And yes, wardens respond to such things. So it depends on a lot of things. I'm giving you this background so you have an idea about what the varied role of a warden is. So we all have realistic expectations. So here's a quick list showing the different types of laws that wardens enforce and types of educational outreach we do. From enforcement of various fish and game related laws, to recreational vehicle safety enforcement, to investigating deaths related to hunting or recreation vehicles, to large-scale multi-year investigations into commercialization of resources, to enforcing environmental laws, to deploying anywhere in the state to serve on one of our specialized teams that address particular issues that need certain expertise. Wardens cover a niche that's unserved by other law enforcement agencies. So some of our specialized teams include internet investigators and tactical boat operators, SWAT team, an underwater remote operated vehicle team, a drone team, and an aquatic invasive species, organisms and trade team, as well as others. Here's a photograph, just showing some different work around commercial fishing and its close ties to the invasive species and trade. There's a live fish hauler truck and tanker, Asian carp for sale in a specialty grocery store, and an invasive crayfish for sale in a pet store. So where does AIS fall on the priority list for enforcement work by DNR wardens? Well, we're 12 years into the invasive species rule, which is Natural Resources Administrative Code, Chapter 40, or NR 40. When I came on over 21 years ago, invasive species issues were just starting to be discussed within law enforcement. Back then, it certainly wasn't a priority and wasn't really given the time of day. But it's taken hold since then, and it's been ingrained into the field patrol work done by wardens. For most, it honestly isn't something that they're going to be as excited about as some of the historic, traditional fish and game enforcement activities that drove many wardens to become wardens. It's not the allure of catching a deer poacher at night, which of course is things that stories are made of and drove a lot of wardens into the career. However, just like any change, over time, things have changed on this topic. The balance has slowly shifted, and most wardens recognize the long-term potential issues associated with AIS. Especially over the past several years, there's been a major shift in the acceptance of this work, which has resulted in some significant AIS cases across the state. In the last 3 weeks alone, there's been a huge number of AIS cases in the trade. So we currently have numerous large-scale cases in the court system, including Asian carp cases, cases involving thousands of illegal crayfish in trade, and cases involving the possession and sale of invasive aquatic plants. We even have a specialized work group of 5 wardens, which I oversee, that deals with AIS and trade. In our law enforcement has agreed that this work is one of our priorities, and we've included it in our strategic plan. So we're supposed to be prioritizing compliance and protection of commercialized natural resources, as well as working to prevent and control the spread of invasive species. So from my view, much of this is interconnected, especially from my view of commercialization of invasive species, like the Asian carp in trade, and live crayfish in trade, bait fish collection and sale, and plants for water gardens and aquariums. And then within the strategic plan, specific tactics that are listed within it include working with clean boats, clean water staff, attending local meetings, and providing training to wardens about invasive species enforcement and education. I show you this because I want you to realize that this isn't just an add-on type of duty that, oh, wardens have to go do this stuff. It's not that same attitude that it was 20 plus years ago when I came on. People don't like change, and change it drives people to fix problems that are going on. But over time, it's just become part of the natural work environment. This is what we do. It's no different than in the 70s or the 80s when snowmobile enforcement became part of wardens' responsibilities. Nobody wanted to do it, but now it's just a core part of it. So the same thing happens with AIS. So in short, working on invasive species enforcement is a priority issue for DNR wardens, and it's expected of all of our staff. So this is just for some eye candy here for the presentation. This is a commercial fisherman transferring carp and buffalo to a live fish hauler. Those are aerated tanks at the front of the trailer, so these are live. Each of the 10 tanks on the trailer contains approximately 2,000 pounds of live fish. So there's 20,000 pounds total of live fish going down the road when this thing passes you on the highway. This is just an example to show you some things that are likely outside of your traditional views about the potential transfer or movement of AIS. When I go down the road, I see trucks like this, refrigerated trucks, and other vehicles associated with the trade of animals, both native and invasive. This is a temporary destination for those carp and buffalo from the live fish hauler. Its location is licensed as a wholesale fish dealer in Wisconsin, and these carp and buffalo will likely end up on the east coast of the US as live fish sold as food. Again, just another photo to stir some thoughts about how certain species get moved around the landscape. It's not necessarily all on the axles of trailers or in bait buckets. Some of the traditional AIS-focused education and outreach and enforcement that you folks and that we in law enforcement have done. There's a lot of other routes that these are being transferred. So when should I call the DNR hotline? Or when should I just handle something myself? Is a question that I know is of interest and has been relayed to me to talk about. So I'd say remember that you or your staff are not law enforcement officers, are not expected to force people to do anything, and you can't make them comply with the law. So don't feel like you or your staff have to do something outside of your comfort zone to get somebody to comply with NR 40 laws. But you can, and you really should talk to people and advise them of the law. I mean, that's really what your role is, and your education and outreach role. If they're driving away, in this picture with this boat and trailer full of weeds, yeah, you certainly should talk to that person to let them know. It's not it shouldn't be a, oh, I got you kind of game. I mean, I think we're all on the same page there. I think that your goal is to educate and inform and stop the spread, and that's the goal of law enforcement too. It's the same goals. So we should be talking to that person before they drive away from the boat landing or other circumstances that might not be weeds on a trailer but are involving AIS. And we want people to know what the law is, so they change their ways in advance of breaking it. But if they are driving away and they choose not to fix the problem, then certainly you should call the hotline. Report that kind of information to the DNR hotline. But in order to do that, you need to be a good witness. So what information are you actually going to relay or document when you call the hotline? So first, we want you to document what you see. There's so many times that people who are, I'm not saying volunteers or AIS staff or anything, but in general, the public, when they call and report something, they don't know what it is that they should be documenting first and reporting. We'll certainly do what we can to follow up on it, but sometimes there's just not any information to go off of. So one of the things you need to do is make sure you document things properly, which we'll talk about in a moment. And then I have it highlighted in red there, please call the hotline, which is 1-800-TIP-WDNR. Please call that number, have your volunteers call that number to report the violations. As a field warden, I took pride in developing my relationships in the county and literally knowing thousands of people. And that's what the warden's relationship is. They know thousands of people in their community and have a vast network of information and informants and cooperators. But I would say, please resist that temptation to call your warden first directly about a complaint, especially if there's an immediate response that's needed. The first call needs to be to our hotline. So the reason for that is, let's see, did I skip slides? No, I didn't. Okay. So, remember, wardens are working on many complaints and investigations. Plus they have to sleep, take care of kids, go on vacation, and not work 24 hours a day. So you may not be able to get in touch with them right away. Calling them directly may work out. It may work out well some of the time, but sometimes it may delay a law enforcement response by days. If you just call the local warden and they're gone, you know what, you're not going to know until you maybe get frustrated because nobody called you back. They might be on leave, on vacation. So rather, please call the DNR violation hotline first. So the DNR violation hotline acts as a dispatch center for wardens. It serves as a way to confidentially provide information about ongoing or suspected violations. It doesn't have to be something you're certain about. It's just what, we think this is a violation. The dispatcher will create a report, and based on the severity of that complaint, go through a call tree to ensure that a warden is notified in a timely manner. They'll have a schedule to know whether or not the warden is on vacation or potentially available. And they can even see where that warden is. The warden might be a mile away, or another warden might be there. And their GPS tracker on their vehicle might say that they're literally a mile away from where you are. We've had that happen lots of times. So they contact that particular warden who may not be the warden in that area. So you would have had no idea to actually call that particular warden. So it also creates a record to ensure that staff follow through with investigating complaints and that they don't slip through the cracks. When you call, then what is it that you're going to say? When you say, hi, I'm at Silver Lake and there was a boat that just came off the water. The trailer was full of weeds and it just drove off down the road. If the dispatcher asks you about some more information, will you be able to provide any more details? If not, then it's not really a helpful call. We need to have some information about how to identify people or a direction of travel or something. So let's take a look at this photograph. In this photograph, what do you see that would be important to document? Think about it for just a second before I say anything. What would be useful for helping another person identify this particular boat and these particular people? So when I look at this, I see a light green Miracraft boat, about 12 to 14 feet long, with only a trolling motor, not a gas motor. I see that there's a boat registration, but I can't see the letters and numbers from this angle. If I'm able to move a little bit forward to my left, I'd be able to get the boat registration in the photograph. I also see that there are weeds stuck on the trailer axle, as well as on the trolling motor. I also see there are two white males, one of which looks like he is in his 60s or 70s, and he's wearing sandals, white shorts, dark colored shirt, looks like, and a baseball hat. The other male's wearing blue jeans, a gray long sleeve shirt, and is bald on top. You can just see the baldness at the very top there. That may be difficult to remember. I'm pretty sure most of us can't remember all that stuff, because I certainly can't remember that stuff, unless maybe you're an incredibly visual person. So one way to not worry about remembering all of that information is by just taking a few photographs. Photographs would be incredibly helpful when reporting violations. What about in this photograph? And I'm going to do a sound check. Is my sound still coming through okay?
Yeah, every once in a while it breaks for just like a second. It goes back so quickly. I don't think we've actually even missed anything but a word or two and haven't lost any actual content.
Okay, all right, thanks, Jeannie. So what about this photograph? What is important to document regarding the truck and trailer? Again, ask yourself that. Look at it and try to get a description in your head. Well, I see that it's a dark colored Ford pickup truck. It's got a Wisconsin license plate. It looks like it's GJ7247. It doesn't have a topper on the pickup, and it has a Delta toolbox in the bed. It's hauling a boat trailer. So there's a pretty good description. There's all sorts of extra things we could add on there, but that's a good description of a vehicle. License plate and the make and model is super, especially if there's something like that toolbox in the back. That's a very distinct item that we can quickly see as we're going down the road if we're trying to identify something. I don't see any people, so I can't relay that information here. So the photograph of the vehicle and license plate are great. This is a photograph from inside a vehicle. It's being taken by the driver of this vehicle. So it's a great photo. But if this is trying to show that the trailer's full of weeds, then there's no value to the photograph because that's not shown here. If that's all there was, if that was the point of the photograph, it's not showing it. But if the point of the photograph was to get some identification of that vehicle, well, then this is great. This is super. So in this one, we can see the boat registration. If I zoom in, I can actually get on it. And partial license plate of the truck. Plus, we can see the people. So that's a pretty good photograph. It doesn't have everything that ideally would be great, but it works. Here's another one. So it's slightly out of focus as the resolution changed when I put it into this presentation, but the angle of the photograph and what it captures is pretty good. We can see a potential driver. Looks like that's the guy, with the sunglasses on. I believe he's the driver. And certainly if you were the person taking the photograph, you could relay that to the hotline or to the warden that, yep, that's the driver. I saw him drive away. Plus you can, the license plate would be visible. The boat registration would be visible. It's great. We don't have anything else for, like there's weeds on it or something, but that's fine. That can be just dealt with through verbally explaining that it did. The most important thing is if we don't have any way to identify the vehicle or figure out where it's going by running its license plate on a warden's end, it's not realistic that they're going to get to the boat landing in 30 seconds before it drives away. So this is one where the warden would need to get that license plate or boat registration info and go to that person's house and wait for them, or go to the person's house and see if they already arrived, and they can deal with the issues at that point. Here's another one. Well, it's a very good photo. It could be better because we're missing some other things, the license plate of the vehicle. But here we got photos of some people. We've got the boat registration information. We got the Mississippi River bluffs in the background. Maybe not. All right, I'm lying. It's just a picture from out west that I used. But it's good. We can see what the boat is, and we can see what the people are. Here's another great one. Boats in the lot. If you look in the bottom right, there's even some weeds on the trailer there. Not necessary for the photos. The purpose of the photos really is to get identification for following up. It's great if we can get what sort of plants are on there or something, but that's not realistic all the time. The most important thing is getting that identification of the vehicles so we can follow up with that. So the truck and the boat are important because sometimes people aren't driving the boat that they own. They're using a different boat. So we need to have registration from both to help identify who the people that were there actually are. So this photo, or series of photos, is great. I mean, it's from a traffic stop. So if we get a great photo or two that's relayed to us about a vehicle, it's much easier to find that vehicle after it leaves. This is a great example of one that left a landing. The information was relayed and we found the vehicle rather quickly. I've even found vehicles days later parked in a garage and still full of the plants that had left the lake with. And it's all because someone got a good description or photograph. So photo of the vehicle. These photos here are from the traffic stop itself, but these are the things that would be ideal to have in a series of photographs. License plate, the registration of the boat, and stuff hanging down from the trailer and the motor itself. Plus this is a bonus photo of all the stuff that I pulled off of that, out of that vegetation that was hanging off of that trailer and boat. There's at least eight different species within that, including some crustaceans. So what to document in summary is a good screen capture if you're looking for information to give to everybody for a one-page little checkoff sheet. I guess other than having the hotline number on there and the importance of relaying it to the hotline, is do these things. Try to have folks get this information and pass it along. Just a kind of a basic checkoff sheet. So I know that some of you venture into other areas like bait shops and pet stores to do education and outreach. Some of you even do some snooping around to fulfill that curiosity you have to see what invasive species some of those businesses have for sale. Going to those places is a great strategy for education and outreach. And if you're the curious type and see something that makes you think the business has some invasive species in their minnow tanks or in aquariums, please don't bring that to the attention of the store. Instead, please contact your regional AIS coordinator, and that person will ensure that it gets to the correct person within DNR. Based on what species it is or the circumstances surrounding it, the information may end up going to the organisms and trade coordinator so they can educate the business, or it may end up coming to me and my team. While you're there, it'd be helpful if you could discreetly take a photo of whatever it is you're concerned about. And just because it comes to law enforcement doesn't mean the business is necessarily going to get in trouble. Oftentimes, we're going to get the business through the education process also, prior to elevating it to other enforcement. I think that sometimes it's a stumbling block for people to report suspected violations to wardens because they don't want to get the person or business in trouble. But they need to remember that few law enforcement contacts result in anything beyond a warning and education. So historically, we had done group checks where a group of wardens flooded a several county area to specifically focus on AIS, on boat trailers and equipment. We would often partner with local Clean Boats, Clean Waters volunteers, other DNR staff, and local media to get the word out in advance. That's still an option, but because this work is now ingrained so much into local field wardens patrols, we don't do much of that type of focused effort anymore. It's certainly still an option, especially when there are problem lakes, areas, or businesses. So feel free to contact your local wardens about setting something similar up. I've heard that some volunteers have felt like they needed to let the wardens know if they were going to be out somewhere doing landing contacts or visiting a bait shop. Some AIS volunteers and staff have thought that such an effort could potentially interfere with some local investigation or issue that a warden's dealing with. We appreciate that you were concerned about such possible influence on an investigation or issue, but you do not have to consider that when determining where to do your education and outreach efforts. So if a warden has such an investigation or enforcement effort ongoing, your presence is not going to change how they are investigating the particular issue. And in fact, the warden won't even be able to tell you if there's something going on in a particular location. So feel free to do your education and outreach at the locations where you believe you need to do your work to get it done. All right, that's all I have, and I'm 1 minute over, so sorry I'm long. That's all I have, and I'm hoping that you have some questions for me or that I can answer them.
And I'm happy to keep the meeting open so people can ask questions. So if you have one, just go ahead and unmute or put it in the chat. I've got the chat open so I can see if any questions come in there.
Hey, thanks, Bob. This is Matt, your old OIT ally, now an AIS coordinator, wondering about online sales and how you'd like us to record those if we find a violation that's being sold in Wisconsin, and how to move that forward.
Sure. So this right now, the same thing would be to contact your AIS coordinator with that information, your regional AIS coordinator, and they will get it forwarded. So Amy Cretlow and I have this worked out based on the type of incident that it is. All those will eventually come to me, so I know what's happening, but some of them are strictly education based. They're not a historic business that we've had previous contacts with or education efforts. So those first time contacts we're treating as educational efforts. And so if you find that, relay the information. You can take a screenshot, including the website, the URL. Take a screenshot or a photo and send it on off to your regional AIS coordinator.
Good question.
Thank you.
Do we have any more out there? You may have done such a good job that you've answered every question they have.
Or I may have bored them to death too. That should be on the table as an option.
No, I don't think so. I thought it was really helpful. I mean, I've been an AIS coordinator. I've had all the similar questions. Stephanie sends a thanks, and it was very informative, and Maureen thought it was really helpful to see all the photos and hear how you described them, which is not surprising because she has, works with the AIS photos, her and Paul, and they're always trying to get people to do the best photos for identification of those things. Stephanie has a question about, do you work with the AIS sniffing dogs at all?
No, we don't. We have experience with that. I'm aware of them, and I know that there's some preliminary stuff going on with them, but we don't have them.
Okay, I think we got that. You kind of cut out a little bit right there.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we do not work with those. We don't have those within law enforcement.
Any other questions? Going once, going twice. Sold to the end of the meeting. All right, well, thank you, Bob. I'm sure everybody appreciated it. I'm definitely gonna get the recording set up so that I can share it. And then I think just all the various ways you went over through this is going to be so helpful to everybody out there doing the work, whether they've been doing this for a short time or for several years. So I have to go change my PowerPoint for when we do waterfowl hunting outreach and tell people, no, don't worry about notifying the wardens unless you're just letting them know so you can work together. Just don't worry about it. Go out and do your thing. So that will help. Well, thank you so much for taking the time with us this morning when you're obviously busy. Maybe Jason wanted to know about a one-page bulletin overview. Yeah, I'll think about how I might do that. I have a couple ideas for that, including having taken a screenshot of things to watch for it, because that's something people could use probably sooner rather than when I get this recording saved. So thanks everybody, and thank you, Bob, and I will talk to all of you later.
Thank you.
Thanks.